Welcome back, everybody. How are you? Today we have my wonderful, handsome co-founder, Carl Brockman of Gold Brick Road today. And today I want to talk about leadership. I know everyone's talking about leadership in so many areas at the moment, but something that we are really learning a lot from our end, personally, is the nature of when we are the people to lead, be the teacher, or when are we the person to either guess support or be the student in terms of how are we positioning ourselves so we are the most efficacious in the relationship. And Carl and I have been going through a lot, and I've been reflecting a lot about my areas of opportunity as whilst I'm learning concepts and frames from Carl to make sure that I can verify and clarify my understandings because I'm too easy to say, cool, I've got it. And then I go into a situation realizing there were more questions I could have asked. And so I'll share a little bit about that from my end. And then from Carl's end, there's been a huge opportunity that I've seen that Carl has so much insight, so much knowledge and wisdom about a certain area. And I know I did this in different areas, but in this current opportunity, Carl has such an opportunity to teach me. And it's okay to take that position, and it's required, necessary as leaders to hold that. So, from my end, like I said, it was a lot to do with when I go into new opportunities, what's going on, how do you see it in terms of when I'm talking to Carl? How do you see it, Carl? How are you seeing this project being planned out? What do you see in the next month or two? What are those goals and milestones that you see inside of yourself so that I can start to jump on those tracks with him? And then I can start to get a clearer picture because Carl is leading the charge right now. And these are my reflections on the student leadership. I have to lead myself, but from that position. And I've noticed more and more of how important that is of when I can know someone has more competency, insight, or nuance. How do I position myself? I'm not just being, no, I'm cool, I got this. Because then what does that cost later on down the track? And that's been a huge reflection on me.
Would it be apt, Kenji, to think about? So this is it's a polarity, and like you're saying, we need to be and play on each pole. We're not fixed to one or the other, and context evolves, things evolve. If you're not growing, you're dying, literally. And so we definitely need to balance and find the humility to be both in the required context. But would you say that to be the student is to seek understanding and to be the teacher is to verify it?
I like that. Yeah, it would be. I'm obviously trying to clarify my understanding.
It made me think about, you just laid out sort of your own opportunity to further clarify, better understand what I was seeing, or I guess what I was assuming you had by not. And so my responsibility in that is to verify that you have it, right? Is to verify that I've articulated it in a way that it has landed for you and that you know what to do with it. And so if I'm not doing that as the teacher in this scenario, then I'm abdicating the responsibility to you to be the most effective student. And again, like I love that you talked about your own opportunity in it, because as we both speak about, extreme ownership is leadership. And so it is not okay, it is not effective, it is not a viable way to live to always expect someone else to change or to be different or to put blame on them. We can only own our own shit in this simulation. And so regardless of what I should have done and what you should have done, I just love how you started with what you could have done more effectively, because that is your own extreme ownership.
I know that we can talk into so many people that are speaking about that right now, but with that frame in mind, what was or what is still these big opportunity or learning areas for you right now of, I guess, stepping into that teacher position?
Yeah, well, for me, let me talk about why I love this poll and why I think it's great to talk about. I guess the pop culture of thought leadership at the moment, there's servant leadership. And every employee loves servant leadership, obviously, right? It's like, yes, that's right. My leader should serve me. Absolutely. They should make sure that I have everything that I need to succeed.
Mm.
They should make sure that I am positioned correctly and that I'm happy in the workplace. And again, that is you giving your own responsibility to someone else ultimately. And it's not that servant leadership isn't a great ideal and doesn't have a lot of very powerful insights. If I'm to think about the most effective leader, the dictator versus the servant, I would probably pick the servant ultimately when it comes to a sustainable team or organization. But for me, I always had a problem with servant leadership because it didn't quite capture the ideal of leadership through my lived experience from football to business to what we're doing now. And I appreciate this poll because what does a servant imply? A servant implies that you're putting someone above yourself. And that in itself creates a position. And yes, again, I like the idea of a leader putting their team first, but above themselves. Not quite. And you mentioned my own opportunity in this recently, Kenj. I've been fearful of adopting the position I need to adopt in Goldbrick Road. I've been fearful of implying that you're in some cases in a position lower than me, or there's this vague, I don't want to come across as I'm taking the lead or I'm the guy that needs to be solely responsible. But where I was the student recently, Kenj, is that you held me to account for that position. You led me, you taught me, you showed me that no, actually, you need to adopt this position. You need to lead from this position in this context, because the consequence of you not means that you are unable to let go, to step out, to make sure that your team has everything that they need to be able to handle parts of the business that you're currently handling. And so, again, like in the context where I'm technically the teacher on the pole, I still was able to be a student and be taught by another leader in my business, which for me was very powerful. So I'll stop there. I'm curious to see what insights might have dropped out.
I'm curious about the servant leadership model that is existing currently. And I'll speak a little bit into my own experience because I'd be curious of how maybe service leadership could take that instead of servant. Because when I used to be an early childhood educator, I was kind of both. I had to be benevolent dictator because we had to lay down the law or chaos would ensue. But at the same time, if we were making rules so life is not difficult for us, we have completely failed these children. And we are not listening to these children. We are not in service to these children. I'm not a servant to these children, but I'm definitely of service to them whilst they're here. How do we facilitate their growth? How do we observe deeply and see what is that they need? Because they're not going to be able to tell me with their own words. They're 3 to 5 year olds, so they'll tell me some things, but I need to observe through engagements and how do I structure this environment. So I'm curious, maybe at service leadership, well, how would that land?
Whether you're religious or not, to be of service is such a powerful tenet for life. To take the focus away from yourself, what do I get? What's in it for me? And to think about how you serve will make everyone better at everything that they do, ultimately, no matter if you work at Coles or you're the CEO of a company. If you're thinking about how you're in service, you will live a more fulfilling and a more abundant life. And so I personally really love the label of service leadership because, like you said, if we're creating rules for ourselves and our lives to be easier, we're ultimately not achieving the goal that we set out to be in that position of an early childhood educator, And so
Mm,
so it's not as simple as just being the kid's servant and let them run rampant and do whatever they
mm.
like, but how can we facilitate an environment that is of service to these kids? And therefore, when you are the benevolent dictator, you need to be, that's a position that you need to hold. Communism doesn't work, as one of my good mentors said to me recently. And I guess that there's one more thing that it sort of made me reflect on. One of the principles that brought us together was the idea of capitalizing on other people's best interest. And to be of service allows you to see those opportunities, allows me to see what's in Kenji's best interest. And it sounds wrong to try and capitalize on that, but ultimately if it is in the best interest of Kenji, then that is a true win-win scenario.
Great insights, Carl. Really wonderful. And that's actually going to lead beautifully into our next section. For those who will join us next time, we would love to go in to talk about how we have started to unpack a little bit about niches in business and niching styles of how do we create value in this business world. It's what we do, who we serve, what do we enable? Are we in service and are we trying to impart value and experiences to people? Where are we? Tune in next time. Thanks so much for joining us, Carl Brockman. Appreciate your insights. Until next time, be well.